And here we go. Hello, folks. Another episode of Ninjutsu podcast. I'm here with a friend of mine, Clint Overland. He is presently working at intake at his local jail. He's had an interesting life, a lot of experience, lots of lessons to pass along to us. So, starting out, Clint, could you tell us why people, should listen to you, why your opinion is worthy of notice in terms of violence and how it's done?
Well, Don, I don't know that people should listen to me, but I'm not a martial arts guy. I am not a special forces guy, nothing like that. I spent 27 years as a bouncer, working bars all over the state of Texas and other places. Uh, I
You look like you're burning in hell right now.
I am. Uh, I worked as a bounty hunter. I worked as executive protection, collections for bookies, for loan sharks. I've done a little bit of it. I've spent the past 8 years working as a jailer, a detention officer in a county jail. And
So,
so I am familiar with violence on an intimate level.
how often does somebody try to take a shot at you in the jail? I'm just curious.
When I first got there, it was quite often. Uh, they wanted to test you, want to see how far to push you. And then you'll get those guys every once in a while that want to do it. Not so much like in the bars. I'd have guys from other towns come in and want to fight me. Um, and I try to explain to people I don't get paid to fight. I get paid to win. And there's a huge difference in that. I don't believe in self-defense. I believe in self-offense.
You expand on that.
Well, Don, I'm not gonna let a motherfucker take the first shot. That's stupid. That's the dumbest thing you can do is let somebody hit you first. Because if I hit you first, it's going to hurt.
Mm.
Uh, you
Been
know,
on,
so
been on the receiving end of a few of those from you.
yeah. I mean, I try to explain to people if I will take the first shot, but I am able to articulate to the police officer why I did. Self defense
Signals.
is a plea of guilty, and what I try to sell it as is mutual combat, and at worst, it's self defense.
Gotcha. So yeah, so you've been kind of good about picking up the signals of some about ready to go off on you, and are able to tell the police officer exactly, or whoever's doing the report, why you decide to preempt that attack. Rather than,
Exactly. I mean, you have to. We call them volunteers in the bouncing industry. They're the guys that are going to start a fight. So you just watch them. They're going to do something to get your attention. It may be starting a fight with someone else. It may be their attitude when they walk in the door. I know I would sit a lot of times sit at the end of the bar watching everybody, and as soon as somebody came in, I knew he was a volunteer. It's the way he carries himself. It's the attitude he walks in with. It's just a lot of different things that you get used to over a period of time.
so what percent would you say of the fights that you've gotten into or situations you've dealt with, let's put it like that, have been volunteers, as you put it, as compared to somebody that walked in not looking for a fight, but somehow got worked up into one?
95%.
95% are volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, Don, I mean, if you're going to getting the bouncers like getting the cops involved in your life, you volunteer for it. You're doing something stupid to have them show up.
Gotcha. So basically, but I'm sure that 95% of the people that you've actually had to deal with have painted you as, like the violence just came out of nowhere and all of a sudden you
Oh
were
yeah,
on them. Yeah.
oh yeah,
So
yeah,
it
and
had
and
nothing to do.
that's part of how you articulate the situation, and it's also how you prime your witness pool. You make
Mhm.
sure that you have witnesses that explain, exactly what they saw, and you kind of use linguistics to, I'm so sorry you saw that. I tried to tell him to stop. I tried to get him to stop. He just wouldn't stop. It's how you prime your witness pool, so when the police officer shows up, they're able to back your story up.
Gotcha. So that's an art in itself. Can you, like, so let me guess. So somebody you have to deal with, he's, violence starts, and then you immediately find the people that are in the area that seem to be paying attention to this and try to get them so that they're ready to tell the police
Exactly.
off. And you say things
Exactly.
like that. Anything
Oh yeah.
else? Anything
Oh,
else?
hey, you just have to honestly, you just have to be willing to go to jail. You have to be willing to take the shots. Donna, I see a lot of these guys teaching self-defense, and they've never been in a brawl. Never had somebody. I've got an axe handle taken across my skull. I'm missing a part of my ear right here. I've got a scar through my ear from a beer mug. I'm missing teeth. You got to be willing to take shot. My nose is fake. I had to have it reconstructed because it was off to the left quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to take the shots. You have to be willing to get into the mix of things. And and with the advent of MMA, there's a lot more guys willing to do that. Problem is, a lot of what they do, they take it to a limit where it's damn near murder. And you pick somebody up and slam them on the floor, and then you jump on top of them and start ground and pound. Well, that's gone from simple assault to assault and battery, or possibly attempted murder.
right. So you're basically saying that well, I do know that a mutual friend of ours that is a expert witness has gotten people off, from using his client used a knife on someone who basically did a double leg takedown on concrete,
Yeah.
and and they argued and they got it off that if his head had slammed into the concrete from that it would have killed him. So he was in
Oh
reasonable
yeah.
fear of his life.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, that happens all the time. You see it all the time. There's a lot more. I have some friends of mine that work for EMS, and they talk about the injuries now that they see uh, due to MMA in real life situations. And I'm not saying it's not real life in the arena. Please don't misconstrue my what I'm saying. But when you take it to a bar room, you take it to a street level, you pick somebody up and drive their head through a window trying to do a double leg or single leg takedown, or they fall and hit the curb with their head or their back and snap it. They're seeing a lot more incidents like that. A lot more, violence needs to be controlled at all times. You need to uh, be able to know how to do it. Now, me, I'm 6'4", 260-ish. I'm smaller now than I was when I was working, but size, intimidation, and a lot of different factors come into play. But a lot of these guys don't understand, when you go for a double leg takedown, you go for something like that, there's nothing preventing that guy from jerking a knife out and gutting you, or driving
well,
8 or 9 slams in your back with a knife, or the back of your head.
you
Or,
know, I've heard some people in MMA say that, well, at least on the ground you can better control the knife. What's your professional opinion on that?
uh, yes and no. Yes
Okay.
and no. If you got the right arm, but if you're in a position where you can't get that arm, or you've already got him on the ground and he's got the knife out, or you double leg, and while you're scooting in for it, he's already scissored your neck. He's already put a sewing machine, stabbed you 8 or 9 times in the neck before you can go down. Um,
Okay.
I know some guys that can jerk a knife quicker than a pistol and cut you 4 ways from Sunday.
I've shared a few beers with some of them, I think.
Yeah, rip you wide the fuck open. One of my toughest nights at work was watching a guy get his belly slit open with a beer bottle, and then trying to hold his intestines in while there's a bar fight going on around me, and I'm sitting on top of him. I'm not carrying gloves, or I didn't have gloves on me at that time. I'd actually used them earlier that night and didn't have a replacement pair, so now I always carry 5 or 6 pair. But I'm trying to hold his intestines in, and there's a bar fight going all around me, and I'm screaming at the bartender to call 911, keep this guy alive. You know, violence is it's real. I mean, when you get involved with a lot of this stuff, especially in bars or where people are drinking or the criminal element, uh, they don't. A lot of them just don't talk. It's just it keys off, and there's a fight going on.
Okay, so this is, we've heard the term, social violence, which is basically like back in the schoolyards and stuff like that and stuff like that, and criminal violence. How how much have you seen things? I mean, what you're sounding is like it goes straight into without like the interview, going back and forth, just off like that, right? Is
Yeah,
this common? Is this common?
yeah, it really is. I mean, there's always going to be indicators. There's always pre-fight indicators. There's
Mhm.
always or pre-violent indicators. Uh, I'll say almost always. Let me clarify that. Almost always. But you know, people have gotten to the point where they're trying to analyze violence and make it. Well, this happens. This happens. This. Well, no, it can go from 0 to 60 in a matter of just seconds without any pause. I watched a guy. We responded to a fight in a cell that went from a fist fight to as we're running down the hall. It's not that long a hall that the guy was on the ground fixing to get his head kicked through the bars over a honey bun. I've seen a guy get his teeth kicked out of his mouth over a stamp because he stole a stamp from a guy. And there was nothing. Guy walked up and slammed a knee up underneath his jaw and knocked his teeth out. You know?
So yeah, so you've seen things just no talking,
Yeah.
just straight in. But on the other side, there are a lot of times when people start screaming or start getting it, and that's basically in my book, that's a time to get the hell out of there. I mean,
You're smart if you're getting out of there. You know, if you see things starting to pop off, it's time to leave. My wife and I, if I ain't getting paid, I ain't getting involved. If we go to a bar for a pizza or whatever, uh, and I see something fixing to kick off, I'll tell her we got to go. It ain't
it
my business. I ain't getting paid. I'm not
reminds me
getting
of a
caught in
quote.
the crossfire.
Reminds me of a quote by Fujita Seiko, who was the last grandmaster of the Wada sect of Kogurus. Basically said that the apex of fight, no, the apex is not fighting. The apex of strategy is not fighting, is the ability to avoid a fight. And it's kind of like when you look out the window and you see there's going to rain, you grab your raincoat. Your first response, your first option you should always keep is just not be there when the fight breaks out. And even when the
Exactly.
fight and even when the fight breaks out, if there's a chance to get the hell out of there, the guy trips or whatever, take the opportunity to get the hell out of there. And
Oh,
that
exactly.
that yeah, that's a great and one of my teachers in Japan basically said, yeah, if somebody wants to come in on a fight, that means that there's some sort of advantage they have. And you don't know it probably. And best bet
Oh
is to
yeah.
get the hell out of best bet is to get the hell out of there. And if the guy really is needed to be taken out, well, come back when he's drunk, asleep, or both.
Oh,
And
exactly. You know, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again: 95% of what's being taught as self defense is bullshit.
mhm, right.
It'll get you killed. Uh, if you've pissed somebody in a profession off that doesn't mind using violence, you'll never see the person coming. All that self defense training, all that gun training, all that whatever is totally worthless if you get blindsided and in the side of the head with a set of brass knuckles.
Which is, again, getting back to like checking things, making sure that, people are not volunteers in the area.
Exactly.
Just, making sure that, just making sure that you don't leave yourself open, a little bit paranoid, but you're kind of like with Colonel Cooper's, living in um, stage yellow, color level, it's not
All the time.
all the time. And that's kind of goes back to something that Miyamoto Musashi wrote. I translated his stuff, so I really know it. Basically, your fighting mind should be your everyday mind, and your everyday mind should be your fighting mind. And
Firm believer in that.
you know,
I teach when I teach survival.
mhm.
You know, I had a guy ask me one night, well, what separates me from other instructors? I said, I'll teach you how to spray somebody in the face with mace or pepper spray and beat them with a hammer. You know, he's like, well, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. Maybe not supposed to, but you can.
But you can.
You know, uh, teach my guys how to use brass knuckles, how to slip them on when nobody's seeing them, how to fast draw them, how to use a sap, how to use a knife, how to, pick up a chair and where to hit somebody with a chair. If they've got their arm raised, you want to aim for their legs. You want to try to break their legs with that chair. You don't want to hit them in the head till they're on the ground. I don't teach my guys to kick above the waist.
You
My
just kick to
deal
the
is,
head when they're on the ground.
yeah, exactly. You have to break their legs and then you kick them. And especially like in a jail situation when I'm going in to do a cell extraction, I've got my arms up. I'm pushing the guy forward, but I'm slamming hard-soled boots into his legs, trying to get him on the ground. Trying to bust his ankle up, trying to dislocate something. Because I'm a firm believer in two things: you take their foundation and take their brainstem.
Foundation and brainstem. That's a good takeaway right here. So impact, you seem like impact weapons a lot, just make somebody go tilt, tilt, tilt. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah. I mean, I prefer brass knuckles. Now I try to never hit. I don't think I've ever intentionally hit somebody in the face with brass knuckles, but I will wear arms out. I will wear ribs out. I will wear collarbones out with them. Because when you break a bone or you've hit your elbow, you know how bad that hurts.
Yeah.
If I reach out there and I slam a hard fist, instead of brass knuckles against that elbow or against that wrist, that hand's useless. If I do that 2 or 3 times on each side, you're just arms are gonna drop. Now I've seen guys get hit in the face with brass knuckles, and I'm gonna tell you, it's not pretty. It's not what TV shows. Bones shatter.
Yeah.
Teeth explode.
Well, the whole TV movie things. I mean, it just, let's just not go there. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that just,
Yeah.
I mean, you must be kind of like more so than I, just hate some movies just because the fights are just, wait a minute, what the heck,
Yeah.
I mean, I had
I see these guys fighting these 8 and 9 guys at one time, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I don't want to fight 2 guys at one time. I've done it. It sucks. I've got the shit knocked out of me. I've been busted wide the fuck open. It ain't these fancy ass moves and great sounds with a cool soundtrack. Exactly. Of all the films that I've seen, I think one of the best fight scenes you'll ever see is Once We're Warriors from New Zealand. And that shows you how a fight scene goes, how fights go. Or the Korean film Old Boy, and with a hammer. And this dude gets hit, he gets hurt, but he keeps knocking people out, because you get hit in the head with a hammer, you go down, you don't pop right back up. That's what reality is. And I see a lot of these guys say reality-based self-defense. Well, okay. Does that mean walking up behind somebody and bust them in the head with a pipe? Because that's reality. Like I said, one of the worst things I've ever seen in a bar is a guy took a beer bottle outside, crushed it up with a hammer, came back inside, had it in a cup, had it in his jacket, walked over to no boy and threw that crushed glass in his eye, that powdered glass in his eye. Now, Don, what's the first thing you do when you get something in your eye? You wipe it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He turned his eyeballs into a fucking hamburger meat, because all that crushed glass went through the corneas. I mean, I've seen a guy get acid thrown in his face. Hell, I got my head set on fire one night with 151 rum. Guy ordered 2 shots, a double, lit it up and just throwed it in my face. I'm running around like Michael Jackson trying to put my head out during a Pepsi commercial. Exactly. Woohoo. But that's reality. Guns get pulled and people get shot. Innocent bystanders get shot. because a bullet don't give a shit. It goes through you.
Yeah.
You know,
And
in the jail situation, I've seen violence kick off over nothing that in normal society it would never happen, but in a controlled environment like that with violent people who were on the outside by the way, they had been outside. We won't even go into what prisons are like because prisons are nightmares. Talk to corrections officers. If you want to know what real violence is about, you need to talk to corrections officers. How they'll, if there's a hit on a guy, they'll wait till he's working out and then run over and punch him in the neck 4 or 5 times with a shiv because they know his blood's pumping, they know his blood pressure's up, and they'll rip his carotid artery out, his jugular out, and he'll bleed out in a couple of minutes before they. I mean, that's real violence.
mm-hmm.
Or loading up a sock with a couple of heavy duty locks, and then walking over and skull crushing somebody. This is what gets me in, and I'm not being mean. I'm not being hateful. Mm-hmm. I'm not disparaging anyone. You do what you want to do. You train how you want to train. I'm just here to tell you that violence is not what is being shown. It's not TV. It's not controlled in a ring. There's no referees. There's no doctors on standby. You probably gonna have an ambulance ride. Hopefully, you don't bleed out on the way. We had a guy get killed 3 weeks ago. They brought the murderer in. I know the guy that murdered. I know both of them. And it was the guy that killed him. That was his uncle, and he killed his nephew. I think he stabbed him 17 or 18 times in the torso. How do you tourniquet that? How many patches can you put on somebody before he bleeds out before the ambulance gets there?
Indeed.
So,
yeah. Anyways, you've got a TikTok channel, right?
Yeah, let's not go into that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So
if they find me, they find me, but I don't want people. That's a separate thing from this.
But you are going to have a video channel up.
We are going to have I'm going to have a YouTube channel up soon. I just haven't decided what to call it, but we're just going to be talking about being a man, being the life skills that a man needs. That I get hell with it. It's old foul dude on TikTok. And
but you don't really deal with anything self-defense related. Just
not really. It's life lessons for young men. I mean, I've seen too many people bitching about the younger generation, but we're raising a younger generation that never had a father.
Yes, yeah, and you say you see that. I assume is mainly in jail intakes.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't know how many guys I've had come up to me and tell me, Mr. O, I wish you were my dad because I'd have never wound up here. And I said, you're right, because I'd have beat your ass till you acted right. We have too many young men growing up with women that hate their fathers and blame the kids and accuse the kids of being half bad. We've got too many issues. So I'm not going to bitch about something and not do something about it. So what I do with the TikTok channel is try to encourage and to strengthen and to lift young men up, and young women too, and give them a father figure. I don't pretend to be anything I'm not.
Well, except sober. You've probably pretended to be sober a few times when you weren't.
Oh, in the past. I've been sober now 2 years, but that's because the doctor said quit drinking or die.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, shit. As I called him a lying son of a bitch because he said my liver was fine. I was like, there's no way in hell. My liver should be leather. But apparently my liver and kidneys are fine. It was my heart that gave out.
Okay. Yeah. I remember a few weeks ago, you had that, incident.
Yeah, I had a stent that had, one stent had gone bad and the other one had clogged up. So they just went in there and rotor-rooted everything out and put a bigger one in. But that was scary because they didn't tell me what was going on because they didn't know what was going on. And laying there. I was hiring a kite. And I heard the doctor. I felt everything. It wouldn't hurt. I just could feel it.
Mhm.
Told the doctor, I said, man, I could feel that in my chest. He said, you're tough. You'll get through that. And I looked up at him. I said, Doc, you're deeper in me than any man has ever been.
Oh, this is not safe for work
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Then
Anyways,
the nurse just blasted out laughing. She said he had to stop for a minute because he was laughing. But I was like, all right, whatever.
we're coming up on time.
All
Is
right.
there anything, any last parting words for this session that you'd like to leave with us?
I'd highly recommend it. Violence is an answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's always an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid asking or getting involved in certain questions. You might not like it.
Well,
So,
I'm afraid that the people that most need that advice are the least likely to listen to it or think it
yep.
applies to them.
That's why I've got job security.
Anyways, say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.